Hey guys, it's me, Amy the German Shepherd Princess 2005 here, and today I'm doing something that I've never really done before on this channel, but I would like to because I'm interested in the paranormal and I believe in ghosts, but I don't do anything creepy like a Ouija board, contacting like spirits, or messing with evil or anything like that. Because I don't like that stuff. I just like the history and the fact that people die and can stay here, like if they have unfinished business and they stay as ghosts. We don't know if it's true. It's just people think that's what happens when you die and you have unfinished business. Anyway, so I decided to make a video about a haunted place that I'm fascinated by the history because a horrible murder took place there over 100 years ago and it is still unsolved to this day, but people have come up with suspects they think is the killer. I have two people I think are possibly the killer: Lizzie Borden and her uncle John Morse. But I think John Morse was more likely the killer. I also believe that Lizzie Borden might have paid her uncle to kill her stepmother and her father, which if she did, then they're both, insane. And they're both probably in hell for what they did, if that is true. Anyway, so I'm decided I'm going to make a video today about the history and explaining the hauntings and what occurred there and what you can do there. And I have a little surprise for you guys at the end. If you guys want to stay tuned to watch it, I think you'll like it. But if you don't like scary stuff and you're not really into this stuff, then I understand and you don't have to watch the video. This is still a kid-friendly channel. I won't be showing any really creepy scenes like people getting murdered, really gruesome scenes with blood or body parts that are disgusting to look at or anything like that. I'm just going to be telling stories in this video of the history of the house and telling my thoughts and opinions on it and basically going through the hauntings and what it is now, because it's a place that you can actually go visit now. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoy the video and let's...
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
An hour and a half.
Yeah.
So, I think the murder was done. Mr.
Right.
Borden wasn't supposed to die that day. But he came home throwing up sick, remember?
That's true.
Yes, so see, I think whoever did this had plenty of time to plan a break-in gone wrong or something, right? Now, my theory, John Morse, he was 6'2". This person who did this did not miss. Well, take a guess what he did for a living. He was a butcher.
Damn.
So he was skilled with a weapon.
But that's nothing. They asked him where he was at the time of the murders. He said that he was over on Way Bassett Street, visiting his nephew.
That's the main street here?
That
almost?
was about 5 minutes from
Yeah.
here. Well, but on the trolley that day, he remembered 6 Irish priests, first and last names, their cap numbers and sash numbers on the trolley that day. Irish priests. Now, the Irish and English didn't get along back in the Victorian era. They didn't speak. They actually walked in opposite sides of the street. So for him to have an alibi that airtight is just nuts, right? That's
Wait,
just
so how did you
too
remember
much.
6 people's names,
Exactly,
though?
let alone their sash numbers they had and the cap numbers.
It's almost like
So he already planned, yeah, he studied and planned things.
Studied or planned, right? Because you figure it was the perfect murder day. The police department was gone that day.
Yeah.
I mean, he shows up now. He had to memorize that to a T. That's a little strange. If
Yeah, you don't
ask me.
remember 6 freaking
No,
names.
6 of them. I can see 1, but 6.
Yeah.
Their first and last names and their cap numbers and the sash numbers. That's just
That's
a little
insane.
bit nuts.
Yeah.
And
You need photographic memory to do that. That's
yeah,
for sure.
That's crazy,
Yeah.
right?
Abby, did John Morse kill you?
She was the biggest threat.
She was the biggest threat?
Yeah,
Maybe
that's
we
what I
have
heard
John.
too. What the fuck?
Oh god, I'm getting chills all over my body.
Abby, did John kill you?
This is like God.
What did you hear?
It was John.
Did Did it say it was John?
Yes.
Oh, my goodness.
It was Abby.
I think it was Abby.
And I'm pretty sure we just solved the case. It was John. Who is
This guy. This guy.
that fucking guy? And we're in his room. We're sleeping in his room tonight where he killed Abby.
Yeah.
And maybe Lizzie wanted him to, but maybe he was the one that actually did it.
Yeah.
And that's why she never had blood on her clothes.
Yeah. I
'Cause
mean,
he did it and he was just not here at all.
and he was a butcher.
And he was a butcher who knew how to...
He showed up the day before.
I have f***ing chills.
I do.
Hey guys, it's me, Amy, the German Shepherd Princess 2005 here, and today I'm doing something different that I have never done before, but I do like this kind of stuff. So this is still a kid-friendly channel, and I will not be showing any really gruesome scenes or like anything like really creepy like that. I would just be telling stories of what happens. If you do not like this kind of stuff, I suggest you click off the video, because I'm mainly doing this because I love this type of stuff and I love telling stories, and because my mom said we would go visit a haunted place this summer. I'm not sure where, but I really want to go to the Lizzie Borden house. Anyway, so what I'm talking about is I love the paranormal. I believe in ghosts, and I believe when we die, we become ghosts if we have unfinished business to do after we die, and people can haunt the place where they died in, but sometimes they actually move on. Anyway, so like, everybody has their own opinion and nobody has to like this stuff. It's just something I like, mainly because of the history. I love history. Like, I love learning stuff in history, like the Civil War, and I'm fascinated by stuff that's unsolved and it's like a mystery and you gotta solve it or something. I don't know why, but I do like it, and I just think it's fascinating that there might be ghosts and like they used to be people. So anyway, like, but I don't like do stuff like the Ouija board or actually do any creepy stuff. I only watch it and read it because I'm scared, and I do not actually like doing that stuff. And I don't like really like bloody stuff either, like gruesome stuff, or like a movie where they had like really gruesome stuff where it's gory. I don't like stuff like that. I just like reading and watching it if they're telling the story and not like too gruesome scenes. That's fine, but that's pretty much what I like. Anyway, so in this video I want to be telling 3 stories of murders that happened that are unsolved and that had an axe used in them. And there's 3 places, and the 3 places I'm going to be talking about today are places that are now haunted and you can actually go visit them. So anyway, let's get into these scenes. In this photo are kind of hard to see. It doesn't really look that bad, so I decided to show them, as long as they like do not look too disturbing. I don't want to like, I don't even like looking at really too disturbing photos. Anyway, so I really don't have to look up stuff on the internet. I might a little bit just to recap a few things that I might have forgotten, but I do know the main story because I've read it a million times. I've seen like so many videos on this murder case. Anyway, so in Fall River, Massachusetts, there is a bed and breakfast called the Lizzie Borden house. And you can go stay the night there and sleep in one of the rooms, like in some of the rooms where the Borden family used to live. And it's rumored to be haunted also by little kids, and they'll leave toys out. I forgot which room it was, but so apparently I'm gonna look up some like stuff on the internet really quick about this, because I just read about this. I remember what it said, but I would rather search it up. Okay, so Elizabeth Borden and the children in the well. So there's a story about why little kids haunt the Lizzie Borden house, and there really wasn't any children that were murdered during the time of Abby and Borden and Mr. Borden, or Andrew Borden, that's his actual name. Anyway, so I have this website that explains this. But I'm not going to tell you about the Lizzie Borden murder just yet, but I just wanted to tell you all this since it happened before. As we've sure you've heard, the Lizzie Borden house is famous for its history of pointed fingers, unsolved murder, and axes. We've all heard of Lizzie Borden, but what about Lizzie Borden? Lizzie's name yells loudly throughout the paranormal community, ringing bells in anyone's minds who hears it uttered. But Eliza committed murders just as tragic as Lizzie's. We know of Lizzie's alleged murders of her stepmother and father. Well, I mean, it kind of just says it already, but I mean, I'll get more into detail about the story when we go further. The anger that lived inside the house with them and the cover-ups that occurred after setting Lizzie free to live out the rest of her life in Fall River, Massachusetts as a free woman. But have you heard of the murders in the well of Eliza Darley Borden? Does this name ring any bells for you? Read on to find out just exactly what occurred, who she is, and the unspeakable acts she committed. So the reason I know this woman, it's a less popular story, but it is explore the Lizzie Borden house, and someone who was giving them a tour, or just telling them about the history, told about one of the Borden's family members that did something a little bit before the murders took 40 years before. Anyway, so I'm going to go ahead and explain this, and this is a true story. The story starts with Lizzie's great uncle Lodwick, and has long been a lesser known footnote to the saga of the Lizzie Borden axe murders of 1892. Lodwick Borden was the son of Martha Petty Bowen and Richard Borden. Lodwick lived a normal life as could be for the late 1800s. He was a ladies' man and enjoyed the company of 4 wives. I can't believe they still did that back in the day, but it was alright for them to do that. Throughout his lifetime, not too unusual, as women died in childbirth quite often back in those times, and they did not have a lot of medicine to treat illnesses, so if you got something bad, you would die. I learned that in history. And that's sad. His second wife, Eliza Darling Borden, has generally picked the interest of the paranormal community and the excitement of all who hear of her. Looking back on her unthinkable acts, it is clear that Eliza suffered greatly from postpartum depression, a condition not familiar to women of the 1800s. Mental health was mainly ignored and swept under the rug during those times, for it was considered shameful to have any mental issues or disabilities. That is really just messed up. And they treated women horribly back in the day, let me just say that. They wouldn't let them vote until I think it was the 19th Amendment that gave women the right to vote. Eliza had 3 children with Lodwick in very rapid succession. Holder, Eliza, Ann, and Maria. With details clouded by time, all that is known is that she killed 2 of her 3 children, sparing Maria, and took her own life soon after. So it's said that she drowned her children in a well, 2 of them. And she then went upstairs in this small Cape Cod style home, slicing her own throat with Lodwick's straight razor. So that is really disturbing. Other versions claim that she committed suicide behind the cellar chimney, unable to make it up the stairs, her grief so intense. Even worse, in order to finish the deed, Eliza would have to spend a reasonable amount of time drowning the children in the cistern, or even just throwing them in, their tiny bodies unable to escape and soon drowning after exhaustion set in. It's even thought that Eliza's husband, Lodwick, committed suicide shortly after the ordeal, unable to deal with what his wife had done and the loss of his children. I mean, I'd be upset too, but I wouldn't do that, but she's just messed up. She obviously had some kind of mental issues, but they didn't treat it back then, so she got help. Probably she wouldn't have done that, but this left Maria to deal with the world on her own, and one can only hope that she did not throwing up, knowing of the horrors that her mother had done. So, Paranormal investigators who visit the Lizzie Borden home today make extreme attempts to contact the spirits of the murdered children. Also, they lived next door to where the Lizzie Borden house was, who died so many years before Andrew and Abby Borden. Their tragic demise caused by a hatchet in August of 1892. So that was like about 40 years before that happened. Guests of the now Lizzie Borden breakfast leave small toys for the ghost children in the guest rooms and claim that they hear children's laughter and sounds of play on the second, third floors of the breakfast. I don't know what that word says. Bed and breakfast. Tragedy runs rampant in the Borden family and has endured for so long due to Lizzie Borden's act in her trial of 1893. Lizzie herself was carefully examined to determine if she were mentally content and able to stand trial to be held accountable for the crimes she had committed. Questions were asked about her sanity and the mental state of the Borden family in general. Of course, the prosecution brought up the topic of Lizzie Borden and her unfortunate children, was introduced as a possible source of inherited madness. The defense quickly shot down this claim, and Eliza was only a Borden through marriage, her bloodline not coexisting with the Borden clan. Mentions were also made that the one surviving child, Maria Borden, was alive and flourishing in the city with her children. Another strange fact, Maria Borden's husband, Samuel Hinckley, was a boarder in the Borden house in 1850 when Maria was just a young girl of 5. Samuel was 18 at the time. The two wed on October 3rd of 1866. So oh my gosh, their age difference is so messed up. Like, Siri, how old are they? Like, how different of age are they? I think they're 13. An age difference of such intensity was expected back in those times, but it is bizarre that he unknowingly became a part of the house's tragic history, not knowing what would occur here. That is messed up. I still don't approve of people getting married, like, with a huge age of the murders. Let's get into some of the family history so you can have a better understanding of why the murder may have happened, or like the situation. It's better if you understand it, like, so you can get it. It's just better to understand the family history so you can maybe see the motives, or like the family's background, and So the Bordens were a prosperous family. So Andrew Borden was a really rich guy, and he was they were well respected in Fall River. Andrew had been married to his first wife, Sarah, until her death, and married his second wife a few years later. So this is a picture of Sarah and Emma and Lizzie's biological birth mom, who died. And the girl in the picture, I think, is Emma with their mom. So she died I think she died when Lizzie was 5 years old. I saw a video about, like, someone telling the history, and they said she died when Lizzie was 5 years old. And then this is a picture of the 3 family members who, so on the girl, like, the first picture is Lizzie. She's the main suspect in the murder of her parents. And then this is Andrew Borden, this is her dad, and then this is his second wife he married. This is Abby, and both of them were murdered, but we'll get into that later. His 2 daughters, Emma and Lizzie, were known for being well behaved and devoutly Christian, but all was not well beneath the surface at the Borden house. Although Abby had been their stepmother nearly all their lives, Emma and Lizzie didn't like her. And Lizzie really wanted the family to move to a nicer part of town. So, basically, he was rich. He really didn't like to spend money or give, like, aid to their daughters with money. And they also thought that Abby was using their dad for his money. And that his daughters wanted, like, financial support, but I don't think he provided it to them, so that's kind of why they had a lot of family tension with financial issues. That August tension in the Borden family were particularly taught. For one thing, it was extremely hot outside, and the Borden family had felt unwell for the past couple of days. They apparently got some kind of poisoning from eating something because of bad mutton stew. Mutton stew. By the Mortis. Sorry, they're starting, and the website is starting to get to like the story of the murder, and I don't want to talk about that yet. So here's some pictures of when their bodies were discovered. This is Abby. I forgot how many times her head was hit, but someone, and that's Andrew Borden. He was found on the couch murdered. The story of the murders. Let's get into some of the family history so you can have a better understanding of why the murder may have happened, or like the situation. It's better if you understand it, like, so you can get it. It's just better to understand a family history so you can maybe see the motives, or like the family's background, and you know. So the Bordens were a prosperous family. So Andrew Borden was a really rich guy, and he was they were well respected in Fall River. Andrew had been married to his first wife Sarah until her death, and married his second wife a few years later. So this is a picture of Sarah and Emma and Lizzie's biological birth mom, who died, and the girl in the picture I think is Emma with their mom. So she died when I think she died when Lizzie was 5 years old. I saw a video about like someone telling the history, and they said she died when Lizzie was 5 years old. And then this is a picture of the three family members who so on the girl, like the first picture is Lizzie. She's the main suspect in the murder of her parents. And then this is Andrew Borden, this is her dad, and then this is his second wife he married. This is Abby, and both of them were murdered, but we'll get into that later. His two daughters, Emma and Lizzie, were known for being well behaved and devoutly Christian, but all was not well beneath the surface at the Borden house. Although Abby had been their stepmother nearly all their lives, Emma and Lizzie didn't like her. And Lizzie really wanted the family to move to a nicer part of town. So, basically, he was rich. He really didn't like to spend money or give, like, aid to their daughters with money. And they also thought that Abby was using their dad for his money. And that his daughters wanted, like, financial support, but I don't think he provided it to them, so that's kind of why they had a lot of family tension with financial issues. That August tension in the Borden family were particularly taught. For one thing, it was extremely hot outside, and the Borden family had felt unwell for the past couple of days. They apparently got some kind of poisoning from eating something because of bad mutton stew. Mutton stew. By the Mortis. Sorry, they're starting, and the website is starting to get to like the story of the murder, and I don't want to talk about that yet. So here's some pictures of when their bodies were discovered. This is Abby. I forgot how many times her head was hit, but someone, and that's Andrew Borden. He was found on the couch murdered. About the family and the history of them, and how they're like how they are as a family, and like their issues and stuff like that. Let's get into the murders. So before I say I forgot to say that Lizzie was a Sunday school teacher, and so this happened in 1892, like, so over 100 years ago. So On August 4th, 1892, that started out as a normal day at the Borden house in Fall River, Massachusetts. The family's maid, Bridget Sullivan, served breakfast to Andrew and Abby Borden while Lizzie slept upstairs. Before long, Andrew went into town and Abby decided to straighten out the guest room in the home where Lizzie's uncle had slept the night before. Some people think he's a suspect in the murders, and I'll say why I think. There was two main suspects. I think there was a couple, but I'm going to name the two main suspects that I think did it. The Bordens were a prosperous family, and I already read that part, sorry. Okay, so everyone, but by the morning of August 4th, everyone except for the Sullivan felt more or less back to normal. Oh, sorry, I read a paragraph without explaining what happened before it. So this is when I said they were probably poisoned because of bad mutton stew. So Andrew Borden left for town, and Abby climbed the stairs to the guest room to make the beds and tidy up. And in the oppressive heat of that August morning, someone followed her. Later on at 8, Andrew Borden returned from town. He asked Lizzie where Abby had gone, to which his daughter replied that Miss Borden had left the house. So they did not like addressing Abby as their mom, and they always called her Miss Borden. According to Lizzie, her stepmother had received a note about a sick friend. Andrew believed the story. He settled down on a sofa in the sitting room as Sullivan, still feeling unwell, went to take a nap in her room. So he went to bed and he took a nap. But soon the maid was awoken by a scream. It was Lizzie Borden calling for Sullivan, crying that her father was dead inside the murder of Andrew and Abby Borden. So, shortly after the discovery of Andrew Borden's body, Sullivan fled the house to find a doctor. But in the meantime, Lizzie's screaming had attracted the attention of several neighbors who called the police. Slowly, a curious crowd began to gather around the Borden residence. At this point, Abby's whereabouts were still unknown. Lizzie Borden told her concerned neighbors the same story she told her father, that her stepmother had received a note asking her to visit a sick friend. Lizzie also mentioned that her parents had been ill the previous days and that she suspected that their milk had been poisoned. After Sullivan returned with a local doctor named Seabury Bowen, the maid went to see if Abby was upstairs and found her dead body lying facing down. She was surrounded by a pool of her own blood. They discovered it after they found Andrew's body. It was later determined that Abby Borden had been struck 19 times with a hatchet, and Andrew had been hit 11 times with the same weapon. While Andrew was hit fewer times, his corpse was still extremely gruesome. Like they say, I don't want to say it. It's just, I don't want to say it. It's a little too disturbing, and I don't want to say it because it even kind of disturbs me a little bit. But, well, it says it right here. I might as well say it. But if you want to skip this part because, skip maybe 20 seconds ahead of right now, I'm warning you to skip ahead because I'm about to say something that's, a little too disturbing for some people. It might be. So I'm warning you to skip ahead now. Do it and don't say I didn't warn you. So one of Andrew's eyes had been cut in half and his nose had been completely severed from his face. Meanwhile, Abby's blood was dark and congealed. This led Bowen to believe that she had been killed first. But who had killed him? Unfortunately, the case of the Borden murders would yield far more questions than answers. And it's still an unsolved murder to this day. At first, the police did not suspect Lizzie Borden, but she was a main suspect, and you'll hear it later. And there's another person I believe is a suspect. After all, she was a minister and Sunday school teacher from a respected family. Plus, Lizzie had sworn a district attorney that she had been in the barn looking for a piece of iron when the attacks took place. The cops initially believed the murders were perpetrated by a man, most likely a foreigner. Just a few hours later, they arrested an innocent Portuguese immigrant, but this assumption turned out to be one of many dead ends. A bloody hatchet was found on a neighboring farm, but it had been used to kill chickens. A strange man was seen near the Borden's property at the time of the murders, but he had an airtight alibi. Meanwhile, Lizzie's Borden's story kept changing. Her claim about searching for iron soon shifted to one about eating pairs in the barn loft. So she keeps changing her story, so that sounds really suspicious. Like, if you were, like, it just sounds suspicious. Why you keep changing your story about what you were doing during that time? It's already suspicious. There was no physical evidence against her, not even a bloody scrap of clothing. But as the police investigated the double murder, they believe that nobody else could have done it because they saw that no one had broken and that whoever committed the murders had to be in the house the whole time. So I think it had to be one of the family members. When Lizzie Borden was the prime suspect in a murder case, many townspeople came to her defense during her trial. If Abby was killed in the morning, the murderer, assuming it wasn't Lizzie or Sullivan, would have likely been hiding somewhere in the house for hours, awaiting Andrew's return from town. During this time, he or she would have been surely risked being spotted by Lizzie or Sullivan. And what about that note Lizzie claimed her stepmother received? Abby had clearly never made it out of the house, so where was it? Lizzie told her friend Alice Russell that her stepmother may have accidentally burned it? What the heck? How can you accidentally burn a note? They also discovered that days before the murders took place, Lizzie had tried to buy poisonous prussic acid from a drugstore. She claimed she needed it to put an edge on a sealskin cape, but the clerk had refused to sell it to her, saying that she needed a prescription. So this is really suspicious, and they were poisoned like before the whole thing happened. And a few days after the murders, Russell saw Lizzie burning one of her dresses at the stove in her house. When Russell asked why she was doing this, Lizzie said that her dress was stained and could no longer be worn. On August 8th, Borden attended an inquest hearing during which she provided contradicting information about the murders, raising many eyebrows. By August 11th, she was arrested and put in jail. So this is her in trial. In 1893, Lizzie Borden was put on trial, and the controversial case soon captivated the nation. Newspaper headlines screamed, "Lizzie Borden defense opens." Reporters from Boston and New York crowded the courtroom day after day, calling the Borden murder trial the Great Trial. Though Lizzie never testified during the trial, she was still the star of the show. At one point, a piece of tissue paper covering the skull of her father fell to the floor. Lizzie caught sight of the bludgeoned skull and fainted. Oh, that's suspicious. Ugh. They presented the skulls in the court, and I thought that was really sickening. But presenting the skulls of the Bordens turned out to work in Lizzie's favor. Her lawyer reasoned that whoever caused such damage must have been covered in blood after the incident, but Lizzie's clothes were clean. This had led to some belief that she had committed the murder naked. That's weird. And the defense was able to further cloud the water throughout the remainder of the trial. They produced witnesses who claimed to have seen Lizzie leaving the barn at the time of the murders, and witnesses who seen strange characters around the Borden property. The defense was even able to get the drug clerk's testimony struck from the record, calling it irrelevant and prejudicial. They argued that the druggist had misidentified Lizzie Borden. And besides, even if Lizzie was the woman in the store, prussic acid could still be used for innocent purposes. On June 19th, 1893, Lizzie was found not guilty of murdering Andrew and Abby. Soon after the dust had settled, Lizzie and her sister Emma, who inherited their father's estate, bought a house in a more fashionable part of Fall River where Lizzie had always wanted to live. So they lived peacefully together until 1904, when Lizzie Borden, now calling herself Lizbeth, met an actress named Nancy O'Seal. The pair formed a strong bond. Some speculate they were lovers, but Emma did not approve of their relationship. 2 years after Lizzie met Nance, Emma moved out of the house that she shared with Lizzie. As for Lizzie Borden, she lived out the rest of her days in relative quiet and privacy. She died in 1927 at the age of 67, taking anything she knew about the murders to her grave. Nearly a century after her death, people are still debating whether she killed her father or stepmother. And also, that a lot of people, like, she was an outcast. People still suspected she was guilty, and that a lot of people didn't like her, and so a lot of people stayed away from her. So she was probably an outcast, and she probably felt hurt because, I mean, people were avoiding her and stuff. Looks kind of like Abraham Lincoln. A lot of people say that, and he actually kind of does look like Abraham Lincoln a little bit. Anyway, this is a suspect I think actually was the murderer. Some people, I showed a video at the beginning of this video where people went to the Lizzie Borden house and claimed that they saw the murder because the ghost told them through some kind of device that can, like, talk to ghosts. Like, the ghost told them who did the murder, and they said, it was John. And I think there's evidence that it could be John. And I have this website right here that gives a little bit of information why they think that he is the killer. Did Lizzie Borden catch a bump ramp? Two authors think so, and they point the finger at someone else. So, I'm going to go ahead and read this article where two people think that somebody else was the killer, John Morse. And that was Lizzie and Emma's uncle. And I think, if I remember correctly, he is their birth mother's brother. Anyway, also, I just want you guys to know that he was a butcher. That was his job. Everyone knows that Lizzie Borden was acquitted of the murders of her father and stepmother, but many people living them and now still believed her to be guilty. What if she was innocent? What if she was taunted and shunned by society for no reason? What if police had named another suspect? What if Lizzie's uncle, John V Morse, who had been staying with the family, hacked up his brother-in-law Andrew and Andrew's wife Abby, with a little speculation and a possible hole in Morse's story to police? Authors Rich Little of Abington and Beverly Falstad of Alberta, Canada, have an interesting take on the Lizzie Borden murder mystery. In their self-published book, Cold Case to Case Closed, the author looked at testimony, police records, and newspaper stories to conclude that Morse was the killer. I was flabbergasted, Little said. I never found it until I started to examine the newspapers. Little, a retired teacher who is currently a part-time adjunct professor of mathematics at Massasoit Community College in Brockton, became enticed by the Lizzie Borden story through his daughter, Brenda Sandagatti, and her love for the case. I love the case too. I want to know so badly who killed them. Who killed these innocent people? Nobody knows. He said he believed Lizzie was innocent and that Morse, a butcher by trade who always carried a cleaver, got away with murder. He said Morse and Andrew, longtime business partners, had argued the night before, likely about Morse losing money in their livestock venture. Andrew was infuriated, Little said. Little said he believed Morse murdered Abby as an act of rage while she was tidying up the guest room where he'd been staying. Little said Miss Borden could be caustic, and they likely had words with one another. Morse, according to Little, left the house after the first killing, likely in search for an alibi, and then returned to the Borden residence and killed Andrew. When Morse was questioned by police, Little said Morse told them he was visiting his niece, Miss Emery, on Way Bassett Street at the time of the murders. He said he went back to the Borden residence at about noon. The story was later changed to 11:30 a.m. and then finally to 11:20 a.m. Little believes he was lying, and it was about an hour earlier. Emery was questioned by a news reporter, said Morse left as Dr. Bowen arrived at her home to check on a sick family member. Bowen, by 11:32 a.m., was already at the Borden house, according to Officer Doherty, who was on the scene at the time. The hour difference could have given Morse time to kill his brother-in-law. I think he killed Andrew because he had no choice. Andrew would know it was him. Andrew would know it was him who killed his wife, Little said. Little said Morse may have used the meat cleaver to whack each of the Bordens multiple times in the head. Little said it's possible the cuts in the victim's skulls were mistakenly believed to have been caused by blows from a hatchet, an item commonly found on people's properties at that time. Little speculated that Moore may have been having an affair with the maid Bridget. During his previous visits, Moore slept in a third-floor guest room not far from Bridget's room. Starting in the spring of 1892, he was moved to the second-floor guest room, where Abby was found dead. Morse may have left the house early and returned to be with Bridget, but found that Miss Borden was still at home. Lizzie was at home at the time of the murders, but may have not cared about the maid and her uncle. Her sister, Emma, who was closer to Moore, was away at the time. Police never questioned the doctor about his whereabouts, and once an alibi was established for Morse, he was no longer a suspect. Little said that there was other inconsistencies in Moore's alibi, like where he mailed a letter that morning. Little said he believes that Bridget knew Morse committed the killings. After the crime, Bridget moved to Montana and got married. Morse also left. He moved to Iowa, where he resided until his death and is buried there. Neither ever returned to Fall River. Little said Morse was overlooked so easily by police because his alibi, once established, seemed to make sense. He said half the police force the day was on a trip to Rocky Point, so they were also short-handed and were dealing with a flood of people in and around the Borden house. Police, Little said, wanting to solve the case. The crowd was gathering. People were demanding action. Cold case closed is for sale at Lizzie Borden Bed and Breakfast in Fall River Historical Society and at Amazon.com for $19. That's not a bad price for a book. So, do you believe John Morse is the killer, or do you believe Lizzie's the killer? Let me know your thoughts in the comments, and then I'm going to show you one more thing. Okay, so now you know the whole story and the two suspects. There's probably more and a lot more information you can find, but I gave you the gist of what happened. But if you guys want to look more into the case, I will leave links to some videos and websites about the murder down below in the description, and I'm also will leave some videos that I've watched of people investigating the Lizzie Borden house, and you guys can go watch them if you want. Anyway, so I'm reading one last paragraph that talks about the Lizzie Borden house being haunted. How would it not? It's obviously going to be haunted. I mean, murders took place there. And, not to mention that a lady about 40 years ago drowned her kids in a well and then, committed suicide, but I think she slit her throat with a razor. Yeah, so that's another reason why it's haunted. So you can now stay at Lizzie's Borden's former home where the murders took place. The Lizzie Borden house is a quirky, charming place to stay, and some people are convinced that the ghosts of Lizzie, her father and her stepmother, still lurk around the house today. So you can have ghost tours, their ghost tours are available at the Lizzie Borden house. It is haunted, explained Lance Zale, CEO of Ghost Adventures, which now owns the Lizzie Borden house. Guests have experienced limbs or ears being pulled, and they have seen figures moving about in the rooms. A woman in a nightgown is often seen in the Andrew and Abby suit, and this figure is believed to be Abby Borden. I wouldn't be shocked if it wasn't. The manager, Jared, has seen some doors move on their own. His parents happened to be caretakers of the Lizzie Borden house in the 1990s, and when Jared was there as a child, he saw a shadow figure moving move in the basement. Oh, that's creepy. The new owner encountered a few different things, and many of this year, when sleeping in the Bridget Sullivan room, the wind-up cat toy on the chest started to play on its own. In February, in Andrew's suit, he stayed alone in the house and heard voices, footsteps, and furniture move. The one night he felt a presence enter the side room he was staying in and surround him, touch his leg, and pull on the comforter. That's creepy. Other spooky goings-on include sightings of the rocking chair moving back and forth. On its own this past June, witnesses observed the chair moving a few feet across the floor in a group of S. When you enter the Lizzie Borden house, you may feel a bit as you step back in time. They keep the house decorated similar to how it was when Lizzie Borden and her family lived there, as much as reasonably possible. We have books owned by Lizzie Borden and several other artifacts on display. The Art Deco radiators are original to the house, as are the floorboards stained by Andrew Borden's blood from the murder under the hatchet basement suit. Ooh, so maybe you can still see the blood on the floor from the murder. That's kind of creepy. I thought they would have cleaned it up. It's not all scares and ghost sightings at the Lizzie Borden house, though. In fact, you can expect to sleep well and comfortably on the ghost bed mattresses, all new pillowcases, sheets, duvets, and basically new bed sheets have been added for optimal comfort in each room. Special romance packages are available for guests who are planning a spooky but romantic getaway. Why would you go there for like a romantic anniversary or date or something, like a vacation? Guests can opt to eat in the breakfast for an additional $20 per day. Vegan diets and other special dietary needs are honored, but you'll need to make your request to the chef each morning. Lizzie Borden's story has been the subject of films, a popular miniseries, and episodes of many TV shows. For example, an episode of the classic show Alfred Hitchcock Presents was about a fictionalized version of her story and included the famous folk rhyme. Lizzie Borden took an axe and gave her mother 40 whacks. When she saw what she had done, she gave her father 41. I think people made up that rhyme, and I know about it. I've memorized it because I've heard it. I forgot who made it up, though, but we don't know if Lizzie Borden killed her mother and stepfather. Her stepmother and her father. Sorry. The Legend of Lizzie Borden, the 1975 made for TV film, has endured in popularity and is currently available for streaming on apps like Prime Video. They even made a TV show on her? That's cool. It starred Elizabeth Montgomery, who was best known for her role as Samantha in Bewitched. And a dress she wore in the film is on display in the John V Morse suit with the Lizzie Borden house. Guests can choose to stay in the room and get a close-up view of this bit of TV and Lizzie Borden history. A variety of tours are offered at the Lizzie Borden house each day, and virtual tours were added to this year. So even if you can't visit the bed and breakfast in person anytime soon, you can still enjoy a full tour experience. A 90-minute house tour will take you through all the rooms of the house. A 90-minute ghost tour is offered nightly and includes other haunted spots in Fall River. 2-hour ghost hunts take place later in the night and are terrific for those who want to do a ghost hunt in the Lizzie Borden house. In addition to tours, the bed and breakfast has offbeat events like Painting with Lizzie Borden, a virtual Bob Ross style event where guests can join a more modern Lizzie Borden as she paints a surprise macrame painting with participants able to follow along at home as well. That's cool. There's also a mystery game where you can travel back in time to the afternoon of the murders and play detective. You can talk to the witnesses and try to find the real killer. Ooh, that's cool. The future movie nights, Victorian dinners, murder mystery nights, Thanksgiving dinners, Krampus, a Christmas event, and more will be added. Axe throwing events are even in the works. They're making their own custom hatchets for that, which will be sold as souvenirs. You can book a stay at the Lizzie Borden house all year round. So my mom said that we would go to a haunted place this summer, like there's haunted places all around the world, haunted hotels where people have died, homes maybe where people like live and there's death been on the property, but like you can't actually go to a place where people live, and but even though there's been death on the property, because it's still somebody's house and you can't break and enter because that's their private property. But there also is a house in my state that's supposed to be haunted. It's 2 hours away from here, and we were supposed to go there this year, but my mom couldn't get tickets, and it was around Halloween, so we have to wait. But I'm excited for this summer, because if we do go to a haunted place, I am definitely going to take pictures, take videos of me and my mom staying at a haunted place. And I really want to go to the Lizzie Borden bread and breakfast, and I'm sure they even have other stuff in Massachusetts you can do. Like you can sleep in a room and they have like good bedding, I heard, new sheets, and it sounds like you can actually do some fun stuff there. Like they talked about art stuff, and you can take a night tour. Ooh, and like ghost hunting. I don't know, like if I could do ghost hunting. Like I've heard people using like some type of equipment. I don't want to buy anything. I might, well, there's some ghost apps online that you could probably use. I don't know if it's real or fake or whatever, but I mean, I'm sure I could figure something out, but I'm not doing anything like the Ouija board or whatever. No, that's messing with evil, and I do not associate with evil, the devil, or nothing like that. No. Anyway, so if you guys want to see me go to the Lizzie Borden bed and breakfast this summer and take videos of my experience, let me know in the comments, and I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Sorry it was long, but it was a really good video and I enjoyed making it. So I'll see you guys in my next video. And